Esther had a conversation with Jared just now, because you'll all enjoy this, especially those of whom we are going to speak. So the hotels allow Esther to travel through the back of the hotel, but they're in varying degrees reluctant about it. Sometimes they won't allow it at all. Sometimes she has to sign a waiver. Sometimes she has to beg and plead. Sometimes it's easier than others, but they never like it, and they almost always let her do it. And it's easier for her. It's a path of least resistance for her. Years have gone by, and Esther's been wandering around in the hallways with the kitchen staff and so far. And recently, about 6 weeks ago, people like you have been making your way back there looking for a bathroom. So it started about 6 weeks ago, and then the next week it happened again, and the next week it happened again, and the next week it happened again. Today, how many of you met Esther in the hallway? Raise your hand. Yeah. What the hell are you doing back there? No. What we're getting at is, so Esther says to Jared, it used to never happen, and now it happens every week, where the hotel people are back there. A woman is saying no one can be back here. There are signs on the door that say no admittance in many cases, not all the doors. But Esther said, it's really funny, isn't it, that the more holes we try to plug, the more holes that need plugging happen. It's just a law of attraction thing, isn't it? What you give your attention to is what comes to you, and there are not enough rules or requirements or regulations or signs or chains on the doors. In other words, you just can't hold back something that, it's like you're calling it with your attention and then trying to hold it back with your reasoning. Come to me, this thing that is not allowed by the hotel management. Yeah. So how do you clean that up? Well, you clean it up by having enough discomfort that you realize you've got something to clean up, and then you go to work on the only thing that works, which is doing something about your own vibration. You dream it into place. You segment intended it into place. You don't try to prevent it into place. That doesn't prevent it. It calls it.
So one day, I wanted to strangle my wife. Really, I wanted to, after she had said something that did not match who I was. And that night in bed...
Before you go further, she touched a sore spot.
Yeah, she said something that was not accurate about me that I'm sensitive about.
Well,
yes.
She touched a sore spot.
Yes.
Remember earlier we said, people say I'm sensitive, when really what they are is susceptible. And why is someone susceptible? Esther is susceptible to you all going in the back hallway, because you keep going in the back hallway and she keeps having to explain you to management. And so when someone touches a sore spot, the solution isn't to get them to stop touching the sore spot. The solution is to not have a sore spot, because if you got a sore spot, somebody's going to touch it, and eventually a person will touch it who has never touched a sore spot before. We're not kidding. Men who have never beaten wives, if you've been beaten enough and you believe that you feel vulnerable, somebody who's never beaten anyone will beat you up. It's just the way the law of attraction is. Someone will be susceptible to that vibration. Hard to hear or make sense to you?
It makes sense. I know why this is called the hot seat now.
Yeah.
So I don't think you're saying I should stay with my wife.
We're not.
Right.
But what we are saying is, given what we feel, given the conversation that we've had, we know for sure that your influence isn't out of complete cooperation with what's in your vortex either. Here's how it goes. When you're tuned in, tapped in, turned on, and impulses begin occurring to you, those impulses lead to wonderful things. And it takes you a little while to trust that you're in that mode. It takes you a little while to start hearing the impulses, and it takes you a little while to become a master at knowing for sure what wavelength you're on and acting in timing. There are some people that have pretty good balance, but we don't encourage you to get on that line that's going across the Grand Canyon or across Niagara Falls. You might not be that good for that. And so we're just asking that you steady yourself a little more until you are absolutely certain that you're following an impulse from source. Because if there's any equivocation in your vibration, then it will be a rougher ride than it needs to be, because there's so much harmony that's in your vortex. You're right when you say we're not advocating one way or the other, but we are advocating for good relationships. You know, a relationship is eternal. That relationship is going to be where you last left it. And so if you are tuned into source energy when you go separate ways, then that relationship won't bite you in the ankles for the rest of your life. But when you leave out of bitterness, or even out of physical personal wisdom, or out of it's not you, it's me kind of stuff, it just bites you around every corner, and the next relationship is infested with it. And then it's resistance that you got to overcome in the next relationship, you see. Conceptually easy to acknowledge, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know where to go with
That's
that.
because it's not time.
To act on what you're saying?
When you say, I don't know where to go, don't go anywhere. If you say, I don't know what to do, then action isn't on the table right now.
But I did know what to do until I sat here. I'm not trying to be funny. I'm serious. I thought I did know what to do.
There is not anything in the world inappropriate with following the guidance that comes from you.
But I don't want things biting on my ankles, like you were saying.
Well, you want to chew on a little bit and see? This is a good opportunity,
Sure,
because everyone's sort of up to speed with this.
Sure, if everyone else
Are
is
you?
okay.
And so just ramble a little bit. Start with the decision to go separate ways. Before you do, we want to indicate something here. So when you're under the influence of source, which you often are, and an impulse occurs to you, and you like that feeling of being tuned in, tapped in, turned on, and you're there often. And so that's your often state of being. Not always state of being, but it's your often state of being. Then those aspects of your life that have already manifested, the relationships that already exist, those that are a match to your newfound consistency, they just keep moving with you. They just keep moving with you. And those that aren't, do this. And when it's under those conditions, this is a path of least resistance, and no one feels uncomfortable in the process of it. When the decision is made from your full power and connection. Now, what does that mean? That means all the loving intent that you've ever felt for this person is in the vortex. And that means your inner being is considering every single loving intention that you hold for this person. And when you are in tune with your source energy, who holds only pure positive intent for this person, then when you receive an impulse from your inner being, you can know that it's going to be one of these delightful departures. But there's a sort of mastery in that. So describe to us, if you will, if you want to, about some of the things that have led to your being pretty sure that it's time for you to go your separate ways.
Well, for one, I'm queer. And so
aren't we all?
My wife and I haven't had sex in a long time, and she has been reminding me of that frequently. I feel like you have been saying here that I am really tuned in, tapped in, turned on a lot of the time, and yet my wife occurs to me as resentful for me when I'm following my bliss. Yeah. And not having a job, for example. Well,
the thing that this conversation activates for almost all of you, and the thing that we want to seize on as a point of really clear explanation. So think of these two perspectives that we've been talking about all day here today. The under the alignment of source perspective, or the what's in my vortex part, and then the maybe the under the influence of something else, like norms or rules or requirements that physical man puts upon each other. And so for most, when they hear something what you just said, that you have different sexual preferences, that's a deal breaker that just trumps everything. But what we want you to hear is that while that is an important aspect of who you are individually, and it's certainly an important aspect of a relationship, it's not the only aspect of a relationship, and it's not even the dominant aspect of a relationship. In other words, there are a lot of other things that through life you've put into your vortex that makes you compatible.
Abraham, I agree with you. I would say she wouldn't agree with you. I would say that she would say the sex is really important and I miss it and I'm not getting it from you, so blah, blah, blah.
There may not ever be a conversation that is more challenging to explain that what your inner being knows about things and potential harmony is a comparison of an atomic bomb to a firecracker than this one. And as we said earlier, we're not trying to guide you to stay or to go. We're wanting you to honor all of the reasons that you are together and let that be the dominant thing that's in your vibration while you're receiving the impulse of what to do next. And when you do that, then what each of you do next is in a good place because you're